Okay, so hi guys, today we're going to be talking about diffusion, which is one of the transport methods that particles, molecules use to move in and out of cells. So first of all, what is diffusion? So diffusion is the movement of particles from a region of high concentration to a region of low concentration. So also one thing you need to know is that diffusion requires no energy from respiration. So I'm just going to write that down. Right? Which means that it is passive transport because respiration is not happening for particles to gain kinetic energy and for diffusion to occur. Okay, so that's diffusion. Now, diffusion in cells. So let me just open this. So as you can see, cells have this this thing which is called a semi-permeable membrane. Okay, so cells have this thing which is called semi-permeable membrane, and what it does, it stops some particles from entering the cell, and this all depends on size. So if the particle is small enough, it will cross through the semi-permeable membrane and enter the cell. But if the particle is large, it will not cross. Look, as you can see over here, the red particles stay out. So over here you can see that there are a lot of these blue particles outside of the cell and very less of them inside of the cell, right? You can just tell. So what happens is that this is a region of high concentration, and this is a region of low concentration, which causes diffusion to occur, because that's what diffusion is, when particles move from a region of high concentration to a region of low concentration through a semi-permeable membrane when concerning cells. So which is why this occurs, and basically now the both regions of concentrations have evened out and diffusion is no longer occurring. However, as you can see, the red particles stay out because they cannot cross the semi-permeable membrane due to their size. So that's that. Now, examples of diffusion, which is basically carbon dioxide entering the leaves. Okay, so over here, carbon dioxide is entering the leaves through what we call a stomata, which is the gap between these two cells. These are guard cells, right? So this happens because there's a large concentration of, these are carbon dioxide particles, guys, so don't judge my drawing, but yeah. So there's a large concentration of carbon dioxide outside of the leaf, but there's very little carbon dioxide inside the leaf. So I'm just gonna repeat what the definition of diffusion is, because this is pretty simple, you know. So high concentration over here, low concentration over here, which is why cells move into the leaf through the stomata. That's diffusion. And obviously the opposite happens with oxygen, because a lot of oxygen inside the leaf, very little outside, and diffusion, right? Now, another example of diffusion is oxygen moving from the alveoli to the red blood cells in the lungs, okay? And it's the same thing as what happened inside the leaf. There's a semi-permeable membrane, obviously, because, cells, and there's a high concentration of oxygen inside the alveoli, a lot of it, and there's very less in the red blood cells. So that's why diffusion occurs. And same, the opposite happens with carbon dioxide. Now, there are about 4 factors affecting diffusion. So I'm just gonna read them and then I'll explain them properly to you guys. So first, there's surface area, temperature, concentration gradient, and distance. Now, surface area, temperature, and concentration gradient, they're directly proportional to the rate of diffusion, right? So which basically means that as the surface area increases, so does the rate of diffusion. So basically, for surface area, if you had a semi-permeable membrane that had a surface area of about this much, and you had particles right to the left of the semi-permeable membrane, like a high concentration of particles to the left of the semi-permeable membrane and a very low concentration to the right, diffusion would occur, but since the surface area is about this much, it would happen at a slow rate because the particles would have to cross it, and they don't have enough space for all of them to cross at during a small period of time, right? But imagine your like the surface area of your semi-permeable membrane got about this big. It would be much more easier for all these particles to cross it from here, so there's a lot more space for them to cross the semi-permeable membrane, which means the rate of diffusion is much more quicker. Temperature, obviously temperature, the particles gain more energy. I must just stress that while I said that diffusion does not require respiration to occur for particles to gain energy, they do have energy due to their random movement and collisions, which means when temperature is increased, particles have more kinetic energy, which means they can move much faster and, move from a region of high concentration to a low concentration much faster, right? The concentration gradient is basically like the difference in concentration on both sides. So you have a high concentration over here, and you have a few particles over here, right? So there's a difference of concentration of particles, right? So diffusion will occur. However, if you just had like a lot of particles over here and you had nothing there, then the rate of diffusion will be much quicker because the concentration gradient is much more larger, okay? Now, distance, it is inversely proportional, means as the distance increases, the rate of diffusion decreases. So let me just explain this properly to you guys, okay? So you have like a high concentration of particles over here, and it's like a large room. Let's say the room is like this big, and you sprayed some perfume. This is the perfume, the particles of the perfume. Now, these particles, like the perfume, will be diffusing from now these particles, so the perfume will have to diffuse all over the room, right? Because there's just a high concentration over here. So particles will go here, they will go here, they'll go here, they'll go here. But over time, as these particles like start moving to different directions as they diffuse, they will lose their high concentration. Like there will not be a region of high concentration anymore, because as they spread out, as you can see, there's like, it's all even. So there's not a region of high concentration or a region of low concentration, which makes it harder for it to spread out all over the room, because some places will be left bare of like the scent of the perfume because it can't diffuse anymore since there's no concentration gradient for it to diffuse across, However, if you have a room that's about like this small, this your perfume bottle, you spray, and like there are just particles all over here, and this whole side of the room is bare, obviously these particles are going to diffuse across the whole of the room because it's that small. So like everybody in this room will be able to smell the scent of the perfume. So yeah, guys, that's diffusion.